Liberation Day is past, and the question of the day is, should I be buying? Should I be buying the news? And a very, very short answer to that question would be no, at least in the short term. We're going to be focusing in this video on more recent price action pertaining to this next week or so, maybe a little bit less in terms of time and what to expect. Of course, we'll continue to build upon the higher term time frame look that we've been looking at for the past week or so now. But today's video is primarily focused on the short term. So with that in mind, let's first get into it. We're going to go over one, what direction is most likely in the short term, two, where are things likely to head towards in the short term, and three, how long is that likely to take? So first and foremost, what direction? Well, we have several signals going on here, specifically for CME on the daily time frame. Namely, the daily RSI is printing a hidden bearish divergence right here. It is a phantom drive, so it's not like a full-on death sentence, but typically these are good enough to get you back down around the prior range lows. On top of that, we can see that if we go over here, the daily stochastic oscillator has actually rejected getting into the bullish control zone. So it rejected the bullish control zone and is turning down as of actually a couple days ago, now that I recognize it. And it remains with downside pressure as long as Bitcoin is closing on CME below almost 88,000 bucks. So that's, rather far away. This is all within the context, by the way, of very, very low volatility. So we are in a contraction phase right here. Can go on for a while longer, of course, but that does make me think that you're going to see range plays generally in the more near term. Anyways, one last thing as far as the short-term direction goes that I'll bring up here is actually a new indicator that I've been working on myself. It's called well, I don't really know what I'm going to call it yet. Don't even know if I'm going to release it, to be honest with you. But this one also getting what would be considered a bearish signal here. It's not a continuation signal, but it is a bearish signal nonetheless for at least a range play. So that brings up the question, where is a likely target for this move? There's a couple of very obvious things that would indicate, a high probability target here. Again, these are range plays. So in this case, the 200 simple essentially governing the bottom side of, of Bitcoin's current range is coming in around 79,000 bucks. That would be a pretty obvious area for me at least. Again, on this channel over the past week or so, I think I've been basically saying, look, I'm interested in Bitcoin somewhere between 81 to 79,000 bucks, but not until that happens. And I do suspect that if we are going to get that attempt, it happens in the short term here. We'll go over the timing of this soon enough, but that would be the first that would be the first obvious area to be looking for. On top of that, when we go over here to the monthly HPDR, we brought this up yesterday as well, but the monthly HPDR for CME is still above the median. So that's generally a good thing. I mean, all bull markets are essentially marked by Bitcoin remaining above the median. The median, again, this white line that my cursor is currently tracing. But in the short term, does Bitcoin test down around there again? I think so. And that is just under 80,000 bucks. So maybe I should actually adjust my range, not from 81, but more so from about 79,000 to 80,000 bucks as kind of like the very likely region. Again, I'm not saying that this is 100% guaranteed to be, the next major macro low. Of course, there's a nice setup. We went over that in yesterday's video. But with anything, when it comes to trading, there is not fucking certainties. There's only probabilities. And at this point, as long as Bitcoin is above, especially those March lows, the hopium scenarios for bull market continuation, I guess, are still alive. The second that Bitcoin starts to close higher term timeframes below the March lows at 76,700, like, no more hopium. It's time to get realism, and the realism would be downside from there. Very likely somewhere between 50 and 60,000 bucks at least, with bounces along the way, of course. But for right now, there is still a bit of hopium just based off of this. Now, I can also juxtapose that, of course, against the spot chart here on the HPDR. This one is actually living below the median and has been, and even got rejected over the past couple months just from it. So, this would say that, hey, there is a legitimate chance of like actual downside. But again, I'm personally holding on to a little bit of hopium just in the short term here, until proven otherwise. So let's go over now, when is this likely to happen? when are we likely to see the extent of this move? So for that question, I'll bring you back to everyone's favorite chart, which is the witches chart over here, just tracking the moon signals. I do think it's very funny. It is also very funny that it seems to work more often than not as well. But we can see that we got the traditionally bearish moon relatively recently on Saturday, this past Saturday, that is. And these phases have an expiration date. You know, they last 2 weeks essentially. And this would be a down phase. And so 2 weeks out from that signal would put us where? That would put us next, not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after that. So that is a time, at least in my opinion, to be a little bit more on the defensive side. I suspect, though, that Bitcoin will hit the low for that period before then, probably closer to sometime before next Wednesday. So a little bit less than a week from right now. So I would remain a little bit cautious. I would essentially be anticipating like a little bit more downside here. But the second that Bitcoin gets very close to $80,000, there is a nice setup, as we went over in yesterday's video. I won't go through the full thing here today, but again, it's not guaranteed to work out, but you don't have to risk all that much, or at least I wouldn't have to risk all that much in order to figure out if that position is going to work out or not. That's the beauty of a nice risk reward trade. So the closer that I can enter the closer that I can enter to the actual failure point, typically the better. I know a lot of people have different ideas on this, but when it comes to long-term positions, I do think that it is actually a really good way to do things. Anyways, yes, and then also on the topic of timing, we went over in yesterday's video and many prior as well, the April statistics. And generally, if April is going to be a bullish month, we see the lows of the month coming in before the end of the first week. So again, that kind of correlates well with the beginning of next week. In other words, I would go as far to say, if you see Bitcoin making new lows for the month of April, or whatever month that we're in, I don't fucking know. I think it's April at least. Anyways, if you see Bitcoin making new lows, after like next Wednesday, I'd be skeptical of what's going on, and especially if it happens after the following Saturday, especially if it happens after the following Saturday. But until then, I think it's time to be cautious. But there is a setup evolving on the other side. Of course, we should also talk about what would confirm Bitcoin being, bullish. And at this point, I think that we could actually move down the point of calling a major reversal from priorly. We had it right here at $93,000, just that swing high from the 6th of March. Now, I think that we can move that down actually significantly, basically to yesterday's high. It would need to be closed above, on a daily time frame. But yeah, Bitcoin can trade and close above there. Basically, what is it, like $89,000 on CME? Then I'd say that very likely the reversal is real. But this can take some time. And if I'm drawing out the LARP lines right here, maybe something like this. Maybe something like this if it is going to work out. Obviously, if it doesn't work out, well, you're going to see something like this. You're going to see something like an initial bouncer, I suspect as well, but yet another lower high, and then boom, fucking dump it. But we'll see. The event that just passed with Liberation Day in a more serious tone here, a lot of the time these do mark inflection points in markets. Good news typically, like a bull market typically ends on good news, and a bear market typically ends on bad news. And so you can usually expect a counter move, after the initial reaction from these things. We're seeing the initial reaction right now. Again, I think that can still take a little bit less than a week to play out, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. Anyways, getting quite deep into this video right now, but I do want to make this, I do want to keep this on the shorter side. Actually, I wanted to follow up on the hourly quantum wave band setup that we went over yesterday's video. We saw this position open right here. This was early on within the day, at least in my time zone. And I was looking at this during the stream, and I was like, I don't know about this one. I'd be taking this one off, but it actually did close as a small win, funnily enough. Actually, no, a decent win right here, closing at almost $86,000 and opening below 85, so more than $1,000 trade. Again, this is a scalping strategy. You can try it out for free for the first 30 days with the code trial. That code will actually work on all of our major indicator packages, like the Quant Prime service, like the Quantum Wave Bands, like Caretaker's Indicator Bundle, and even the VMP as well. All of these things you can try out for the first 30 days for free. Figure out if it's for you or for not. I understand for a lot of people, they don't, or you don't like short-term scalping. Fine, that's all good. But we are going to be raising the price on this at the end of this month. So you can actually lock in the lower price right now. And of course, with any sort of price raise, we will naturally provide more value with it as well, meaning that we're going to be putting in a trending strategy alongside this. And then we'll also have a dedicated Discord server for people who are using this. You can chat it up with everyone and myself as well. And we're looking forward to that. Anyways, yes. So this one actually did enter in another position. Looks like pretty much on the low thus far. Yeah, like literally on the fucking low thus far. It is in profit right now. I feel the same way as yesterday. It's like maybe it pops back up towards 84, but the money's already in your hand. Just fucking close it. Like, this is fine. This is fine. So again, if you're a newer trader, this is something that we designed for newer people. Keeps you in line. Most importantly, keeps you from getting wrecked because it gives you risk management, like very clear risk management signals, as well as your entry and exit signals as well. But yeah, anyways, that's where I'll end things for today's video. As always, I want to wish everyone the best of the best. Take care. Much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.